So next question regarding about, we all agree that by adopting the right practice, the efficiency, the business, like Ali says, avoid delays, yeah, because we are also from lean principles, we are get rid of the waste and remove the bottleneck, and the time is also a valuable resource for the companies by avoiding delays and automation. So the question is that, do you believe by adopting the right practice, 10 times development efficiency and performance are realistic or not?
You're asking me, right?
Yes, well, I'll start with you, Ari.
Okay. When I talk about Agile, it's I don't do one methodology. I'm focusing on practices only, because one team is held by practices from Lean or Kanban, another one from XP or TDD or Scrum and DSDM or Crystal or Adaptive. Right. So I think that in terms of practices, we have to focus on. I lost your question. Sorry. Bring it back.
What I'm trying to say that there's a lot of practice like Agile and DevOps. Even within Agile, you see DSDM, XP, Scrum. The question is that by adopting the right practice, do you think development efficiency and performance can improve 10 times than before they're adopting any of these practice? Do you think 10 times improvement efficiency are realistic?
10 times, I don't know. I think on the tech side, a lot of companies still have a long way to go, and then we get into Patrick's expertise, right? The thing is that we, especially the world in IT, where I'm also originate, we are always busy automating other people's work, but not our own, with all the consequences that are connected to it. So I think there's a lot to go. Then you have the interaction process between all stakeholders when you make something, whatever you make. And all stakeholders, it is the business and is the IT, but it's also the legal and the marketing and all the other. So I think there's so much to, I don't know about 10 times, but I think a lot of organizations can still progress a lot, because a lot of organizations are still very much hanging on to old practices. Because we try to get this Agile thing going, we try to get the DevOps thing going, and of course it's growing. But we have to, I'm looking at Patrick and he has gray hair as well, and I have gray hair too. But I always say, when you go into transformation and change process, and becoming DevOps and Agile as an organization is a change process. The worst people you can meet are guys over 50 years with gray hair and a beard. They are the worst because they don't want to change. And most of the time, those are the people running organizations. So there are so many things still to do. So I don't know about 10 times, son, but 7 times maybe? Yeah. I know. Patrick, what do you think? Yeah. I don't know.
I think that that number, maybe the 10 times came up with the State of DevOps report from Puppet, where they say that people adopting the new practices, there seem to be 10 times more productive than people not adopting the practices. So I think that's where it stems from. But right. So the survey is a very good thing, but obviously, like everything in IT, it depends, right? I want to get to the crucial part of the question, which is, if you define practices as almost like the mechanical thing that somebody does, do you do your stand-ups every day? Do you have a deploy script? So more of the mechanical things. I don't think it is a guarantee that it will work. I often meet people that that are, let's say, traditionally more ops-centric, and when I talk to them and they say, well, we're doing all these DevOps things and we're automating everything. Okay, so far so good. I'm happy with what they're saying. But then I hear their narratives change. We're doing this because we think the other people are stupid and we need to protect them against themselves, right? So you're doing the same practice, but you're doing it with a completely different mindset by thinking you need to be the protector of the realm. You need to kind of hold the fort. Where a different mentality is that we're going to help them get better. We're going to like reach out. We're going to like educate them. We're going to make it self-servicing so we meet their needs instead of meeting only our needs. And I think that shows you the difference in you might be doing the same practice, but you're totally applying it differently with a different mindset on how you deal with these situations. And it is this, I think I don't know if anybody remembers, but the Buster operator from hell used to be a meme in the operational world where, you know, you say no all the time. The same thing is now happening in DevSecOps, right? These were the people who said no all the time, like, no, you can't do this, you know, you can't do that. And I think the mentality shift is that they started asking, what do you need to do your job better? And not like, what do we need to do our job better? It's like, what do you need to do your job better? And that is using the same practices, but with a different mindset. And I think that will determine the success of your efficiency in your company way more than per se the practice. You know, the practices you could do as checkboxes. Yes, we're using containers. Yes, we're doing CI. Yes, we're doing tests. Yes, we're doing stand-ups. But still, you might not get the results because your company is not used to collaborating. Your company is not used to kind of sharing results. Your company is still doing not like doing blameless postmortems or like there's still very much politics involved. So I think the practices are really helpful, but you have to be aware that it's not the only thing. And that's the scary part, is that when people say, well, we tried the practices, we did DevOps, it didn't work for us. We tried Scrum, it didn't work for us. And they kind of dismissing the elephant in the room is that their organization didn't change, but they just changed their practices. So in that way, I think, like you're saying, the result is very much of a variance, whether that's like 1 or 10 or even negative, because in the beginning there's often a cost at adopting a new practice, and the whole system goes against it. And if you can't overcome the inertia of the company, you're like stuck with a hole in your hand of doing that effort. I don't know if that makes sense to you, and you probably seen it many times, Era, in the companies adopting it, and then, like you say, not doing the dance, but not in spirit, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe I can add a little bit on it.
Please.
The two things that you need to doing Agile and DevOps is really doing things in a different way. And if you do things in a different way, it means that you have to do things that you never did before. And if you do things that you never did before, they are not going to be perfect because you never did it before. You have to learn to get into this. And managers expect you, you know, it's like, okay, you're world champion in football. Now we are going to play volleyball, and I expect you to be a world champion right away, which is bollocks. That doesn't work, right? Mm-hmm. That's one. So you need to accept that you have to, you know, grow into this. And there's another thing that people underestimate. And I would like to make the metaphor with drive, because I used it this morning with people from Australia. You know, in the Netherlands, we drive on the right side of the road. So I said to the people in Australia, you drive on the wrong side of the road, right? Because they drive on the left side of the road. Now, I made a metaphor like this, and it's really because it happened to me. You can teach me how to drive on the left side of the road. Now, first of all, it looks a lot alike. You know, there's a car, there's a couple of wheels, there's a steering wheel. You know, we have a road, we have other people on the road. It looks all the same, but the rules are different. Rules of engagement are different. And then the worst part is that you can train me to learn those new rules. That's training, right? That's doing Agile, doing DevOps. But if something goes wrong, I don't have my set of memories to have the reflexes that help me to, within the Agile DevOps concept, to find a solution for it. The only thing I have is the old reflex from the past. So you see people going into change, and then in the same time, they go back because managers say, oh yeah, this is going wrong, this go wrong, and we implement an old one. And before, I call it innovating backward. And it happens. And those old reflexes are so powerful, you have no idea. And then people will say, oh yeah, see, it doesn't work for us. No, this is what requires, you know, good help in this transformation, not only to bring the change, but also to sustain the change.
Yeah, I fully recognize what you say, and both of you, Patrick and Ali. I remember 3 years ago when one of the speakers in DevOps Days, he was asking me, I was asking him, how do you see people are implementing those practices like DevOps? And he says he has seen the companies having a development, have operation, and they create a new department called DevOps department. And they think they are still also practicing DevOps, but then they are looking for the same result as the real DevOps teams. And that's what you say, Patrick and Ali, it's different mindset. And also it's not only about DevOps, Agile, it's also about the environment, culture, the legacy, the structure, organization structure are fit for it. And if the result is not as they expect to see, then they blame the practice didn't work. And they didn't see if they have the right soil, they have the right environment for the practices. And yeah, I recognize that. So basically, before we are judging if those can improve the productivities, it's better to check if you really implement the real essence of Agile and DevOps, rather than just learn what people are doing, but without really understanding how other things around it should be set for those practices. Right. Thanks both for the input.